not a panel to be moderated at all. This is a panel literally of Dhurandhar. आपने धुरंधर के बारे में सुना इससे पहले, and so आपने इस पैनल में हमने धुरंधर के बारे में सुना और अब आप धुरंधरों से मिलिए. So applause for my fabulous panel, please. अरे applause. So here's the conversation. We are discussing the Bharat civilizational journey and why this journey has been very fascinating to me personally, and honestly that's a thread both of us share mutually as well. Is the fact that of the 4-5 original civilizations, so there's the Chinese, there's the Indian, there's the Middle Eastern, so Sumeria, Assyria, Babylon, all of them, Middle Eastern, Egyptian, and the Meso-American, so Aztec, Peruvian civilizations. There are only 2 civilizations that continue unbroken. All of the other civilizations have collapsed. The 2 that continue unbroken are India, are China in absolute and splendid isolation, and India in very glorious amalgamation. Sorry, I could see last week what they said, I could see him calculating ki something's wrong there. Yeah. So of these 2 civilizations, which is China and India, these civilizations have been unbroken, they've grown, they've advanced, they were there at the beginning of time. And as once upon a time, Brijesh and I were talking, these are the civilizations that will also be there at the end of time. So my first question to my panelists, and I would like to start with you, Brijesh, is what explains this unbrokenness of a civilization? So in an era जहाँ पे हम अपने ancient scriptures, not just India but globally, we have not been able to go back to the civilizations. We discover them in archaeology, whether it's Egypt, whether it's Mesoamerican, Middle East, of course, has seen through multiple civilizations, rising, falling, collapsing, breaking, all of them, with no traces of an earlier civilization left to us. How have we continued unbroken? What explains it, and what's to be learned from that? Actually, learning part of it. What explains this continuity?
Picking up where you set it up, that I'll begin with something which is a contradiction in itself. That Iqbal says that Yunano Vishwa Ruma सब मिट गए जहाँ से, अब तक मगर है बाकी नामो निशान हमारा. कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी, सदियों रहा है दुश्मन दौरे ज़मां हमारा. Now this very Iqbal goes on to form Pakistan. Look at the contradiction. That the guy who writes this is the architect of modern Pakistan, right? But what he touches is in fact a deep truth, in that there has been a realization that there is an entity here which is beyond time. Like probably Mark Twain says that Varanasi is older than history itself. Or if you go to Vishnu Puran, and would somebody quote that slok for me? This thing. Bharat Khande Dambudi. It basically goes on to tell the geography of India. Right? Not only that, if you look at the consciousness of our scholars, right from calculating where people still debate whether the earth is flat or not, there are people who are calculating pi to 4 decimal, and also rightfully calculating the circumference and radius of earth down to almost 99% accuracy. So there has been first a continuous fabric of civilization, a continuous realization, despite kings and queens and various kinds of regimes coming and going, there has been a living entity here. So you find that people have always been trying to tell us the other way. Because the whole Indian history project, when it was set up by the British, was to tell that you are some inferior beings who need an oriental despot, and since we have replaced the despot, we are the ones who will rule you. So, right from the Asiatic society to Telegram to everybody, when you found Ashokan capitals, you said, oh, this is from Persia. When you found something else, oh, this is from there. Now, they did not ever find the originality that is there in Indian culture. And ironically, after that, all the schools of historiography were always written with a slant. How can you be a Marxian and a historian? Like all the Indian history was written by people who claim to be Marxian historians. So when you are approaching something with a filter, you are going to pick up only certain things. You are going to pick up only certain pieces of history. You will be amazed to know that most of the very established people whom we study about ancient India do not know a word of Sanskrit. And those are the primary authors we have read for Indian history. Now, the irony is that, as we were discussing while having coffee before the session, is that there is so much here, but somehow it is undiscovered. And I think this is a time when it should be discovered, not rediscovered. We should engage upon our own quest to discover what Bharat and its civilization means to us.
Thank you, Brijesh, because I pick up right from there. And in that context, I wanted to speak to you, Rajesh, about the fact that Brijesh ji baat kar rahe hain that we should discover ourselves. It's not a rediscovery, which is a fact, right? The fact that we live our what is called mythology, and I seriously protest to that term. But we live our scriptures, we live our kind of belief systems, we live our rituals, we live our symbols, our stories, our epics, our texts. In fact, more often than not, our stories were written to elucidate our philosophy, and they were not dealing. So if I see it from a pure educator's pedagogy, I think the structure of the system was so beautifully done, where you first had SOP manuals which told you what you needed to do. Then you had commentary texts that explained why you were doing what you were doing. And then, then you appeal to all kinds of learners. So then you also had story texts and epic texts, whether it was the Puranas or the Itihasa, that gave examples and references to that commentary, to that philosophy. But what is very fascinating is that this, so while we've seen that the pedagogy seems to be very contemporary and very modern, we also realize that the stories continue to be very relevant. So अगर वो stories relevant हैं तो वो philosophically relevant होगी, one would assume. But ये तो बड़े past में था. ये तो बड़ा ही this sounds like a very ancient, old-fashioned storytelling format that we seem to be following. So I'd love for you to comment on why it isn't so, and why our storytelling, our epics are our living history, and how have they contributed to us being an unbroken indigenous living civilization? How is it present in us today?
Okay. Thank you. Let me first thank the organizers. To begin with, since I've been for 30 years an editor, the editor in me comes in. So I would say if you just tweak a little bit, I think I can get the answer here. Bharat civilization journey beyond space and across time.
Wow, correct.
In space and across time is a very mental concept. You have left one side a starting point and end point. The entire idea about why we are still throbbing, still doing, let's say about epics. So your old storytellers, let's take an example of our epics. She touched upon it, he touched upon it. Why are Western epics, not that they are not good, they're equally good. Why are they not alive today? While Ramayana or let's say Mahabharata are not just alive and kicking, if I may, if I'm not getting into very controversy, still throbbing. It's because we're talking about things not in the constraint of space and time. We're talking about in constraints of way beyond space and time. I think that's a standard thing. Even if not putting in words, I think all storytellers, is sitting here, all of us who be storytellers, will realize the stories cannot come unless you transcend that. So one thing that this nation, if I may call this nation, as a nation per se, the jungle when you talk about that, is not just the physical thing. I keep understanding, just a slight digress, there have been multiple things. Somebody spoke about why are these Westerners, when they want to come to realize that they want to go understand things much beyond the materialism, they invariably keep coming to our land. They're not going anywhere. Have they not found those things? They've been masters, we do talk about in Persia, they've been masters in China, they've been masters in Japan. Nobody goes there. Have you thought about that? It's again, when we talk about, it's not about a place per se, a geographical place per se, not about space, not about time. So, in short, I'll end it because it's part of the entire conversation that happened. Why it's about storytelling, why it's about civilization, quality, why it's about philosophies, what ancient Indians understood was that we are not part of one point. We are one confluence that's going. It's a never-ending process. And at one point we are sitting here. March 2026, we are sitting here and touching one point. But it's not starting here or ending here. It is just one point, that never-ending stream. It goes on in ever and ever. That's why the two words, I'll end with that. Sanskrit has those words. One is we call upon Anant, without end. But there's another thing which we don't speak much about. It's called Anadi. There is no beginning. There's no beginning, there's no end. This is the only place which spoke about it. And that's one of the reasons why this civilization never finished.
One small comment on. So in fact, whenever we used to talk about River Saraswati was always in the memory of everybody. And everybody said that this does not exist. Right? Now they are discovering. Now they have discovered the entire path of the River Saraswati and how, when it dried off, it led to the civilizations of Indus civilizations suddenly disappearing. But imagine this, that the River Saraswati was in our memories. So we have an unbroken stream of memory and consciousness.
Yeah. So I think it kind of like ends what I wanted to say. It's like it's a never-ending thing, and something while we are racking our brain, it's because somewhere down the line it's a Western mind that's still in us. Call it Macaulay Culkin or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that ancients didn't have trouble at all with this. Ancient Indians never had this trouble. We'll have to find out the time. Some historian perhaps will say at this point in time it happened because of blah blah or whatever reason. But the fact of the matter is, ancients were much beyond that. It was very easy for them to just fluidly go beyond this line. That's why stories have survived. That's why the civilization has survived and will keep on surviving.
Okay. Brijesh has broken away from our topic, Bharat civilization journey in space and across time. Bharat throughout करेंगे. Civilizational journey, Brijesh has broken that category. It's not a journey we are alive. Rajesh has broken the whole idea of space, that we should be in space, we are beyond space. I will speak to Ajay next time. He is, by the way, going to break away time. I am going to, after Ajay spoken and you're doing more of that, I am going to break away and abandon my moderator role because I want to be part of this discussion and not moderate it at all. But before I do that, I am obliged as the founder of Max City Litfest and as the official moderator of the panel. Ajay, would you like to tell us, because Rajesh has left us off on this beautiful segue, saying that this will last across time. I want to understand from you कि टाइम तो टाइम होता है, मतलब सबका ही वही टाइम होता है. Across the world, across the globe, everybody is experiencing that same sun. It's the same format that exists. So भाई ऐसा क्या है, क्या था हमारे time, concept of time, flow of time, understanding of time में that actually makes us timeless and breaks away from the concept of time.
Sure. So, something I'm very passionate about. Had anyone met me 20 years ago, I was more American than American, so people probably wouldn't recognize me. And then this whole gradual transition happened as I started to delve deeper and see things for what they really are. The studies that I've done, now I'm just saying it because it has to make sense, because you shouldn't think that nothing like this has been done for the past 500 years, literally speaking. But actually what I'm talking about is something that has not been discussed for 2000 years. So before I get into it, can anybody tell me today's Panchanga? We're in India, right? We're all from this civilization that we call it, none of us know the Panchanga.
Chaitra Shuddha Ekadashi.
Chaitra Shukla Ekadashi.
Shuddha Ekadashi.
Shukla Ekadashi. Shukla Pakshi.
Shukla mein, Shuddha.
I understand, I'm talking about the Paksha.
Okay.
The reason why Apple iPhone is superior than a regular phone or MacBook is superior than a Windows laptop is because the foundation is very strong, right? When you really start to get deeper into it, you realize that there's something that we're missing. And what is it that drew people to India? What is it that India created wealth with? The second question is, everyone tells us that the colonization began in the 15th century. Why in the 15th century? We're all speaking English, clearly we feel that the British were superior. Why did they conquer us in the 13th century? By the way, the word is not conquer, it's colonize. They didn't come here to colonize, they came here to wipe us out. So why in the 15th century? I asked this question and people don't have an answer. Nobody has an answer. Science started in the 15th century, nobody has an answer. Newton saw the apple fall, gravitation was discovered, Galileo gave 9.8 meters per second square. This is where my critical thinking kicks in. I'm questioning this thing, and what I've done after all this study, Vedanta Jyotish and now Doctor at IIT Mandi, a civilization is a society which can measure in tune with nature. If you can't measure in tune with nature, you're not civilized, because as the scriptures say, Charachar Jagat, Sada Parvartanshila, everything's changing all the time. Even the sun is not rising exactly in the same direction, it's changing by a degree every day, right? So Ramayana, technically for the rest of the people, it's a story. For me, it's a story of time. Ram, Ayana, Uttarayana, Dakshinayana. He goes from Ayodhya down to Sri back to, so Dakshinayana, Uttarayana. That's what he's doing. Ram is a Suryavatara. And the story does not begin with there was a king and he had 4 sons. It's a far deeper and richer story. I can tell you that Sri Ram was born on Chaitra Mas Shukla Paksh Navami Madhyadina. That's Suryavatara. Shri Krishna was born in Bhadrapad Krishna Paksh Ashtami Madhyaratri. That's Chandravatara. Right? What are our festivals? Ganesh Chaturvedi, Nag Panchami, Rishi Saptami, Durga Ashtami, Ram Navami, Vijay Dashmi. I mean, what are you doing really? We have Mahakaleshwar that we worship. Shri Krishna, there's a story in Bhagavad Gita when he's a little kid and he's playing around and Maheshwara says, don't be too naughty, I'll tie you down. So she brings a rope and the rope falls short. You're like, oh, such a cute story, nice story. So she brings along the rope falls short. Third rope still falls short. And so finally she gets up and she says, Shri Krishna, what's wrong? You don't like to be tied. And he says, no, I don't like to be tied. You think it's a story, doesn't mean anything. In Bharat, he says, Kalu Asmi, Lokakshaya Kavatro. I am the destroyer of the worlds because I am time, I am Kala. Kali is Kala, Mahakal is Mahakal, and time is Sri Krishna's Kala. So fundamentally, Hindus are worshippers of time. That's what you're worshipping. The idol, the murti, and all that's a creation. The Bluetooth symbol on your phone is not Bluetooth itself. That's in the air. The fact that it lights up, it tells you, okay, it's on. But the fact that it's working is known if your WhatsApp is working, your internet is working, right? So Bhagavan for us is Bhumi, Gagan, Vayu, Agni, Nili. And Panchanga is of Panchangas. That's why it's this. So it's interacting with the Panchanga, which is the 5 tattvas. So Tithi, Vayu, Nakshatra, Vara, Yoga, and Karma. So today's Panchanga is, you'd say your Graha, Nakshatra, Rashi, and then you say Shri Shwetaraha Tadre, Vedasatman Mandre, 28वां कलयुग प्रथम चरण 2083 Vikram Samvat. Right? That whole time, space, and coordinate is being given. So that Panchanga is interacting with the Bhagavana, the Bhumi Gavakaya, informs your 5 Dhyanendriyas, and then you act with your Karnendriyas. That is what makes it superior. Why? In the 15th century, accidental invention of the clock happened. Really? This is it. You've arrived in the world. So if you're a king, you go and conquer another kingdom, what is it that you built there? I asked this, and I've asked this at Harvard, Wharton, very smart people, they take 20 tries and they can't tell me. They're like, I'll build like churches, so what do the Europeans build here? They build churches, railroads, buildings. I said, well, there's one special thing that they build, it's right in front of you and you can't see it. Any guesses?
Including your fellow bandits.
Including?
No, you also don't know the answer.
No.
Nobody knows the answer. I'm really surprised. And when I tell them, they're like, oh my god, you're right there.
Yeah,
People from there know. Yeah.
You said that they built something
Yeah. Which is imposed right on you, right on top. They made fun. They wiped out the New Zealand Aborigines, the the Africans, the South Americans, Native Americans, and they made fun of one specific thing. They're like, these are idiots. What are they doing? I've already given the answer. Clock towers. Ghanta is what they built everywhere. I've been to places that I've not heard of, and the Ghanta is right there. They came in. These are idiots. What are they doing? Worship the sun. It's a dead object. Look, this is 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Dun, dun, dun. That is the fundamental colonization that we've gone through. The moment we realize that everything, आपका base यहाँ पर है, you move the base slightly, everything will change. I asked fundamental question, why do cars, the very first in Europe, started driving on the left side of the road? Why? We're like, no, because we're left lane, traffic lights, and this. I said, no, it's very, very fundamental. The first innovations of movement from point A to point B were fundamentally on horses. 90% of people in the world are right-handed. If a guy is going on a horse, takes out a sword, starts fighting, doesn't say, let's first adjust directions. So people say it's a nice story. No, you go to the most expensive Mercedes showroom, ask them for a car, the first thing they tell you, the horsepower of the car. Because a car is fundamentally a horse. So foundationally, we are based on time. That's the foundation. Now, coming to the Shastras. So the Shastra says, first there is Chetana, then there is Kala. And Kala has 3 gunas, Sataguna, Rajoguna and Tamaguna. This is Rajoguna, Brahma. This is Sattva-guna, Vishnu. And this is Tamaguna, Rudra. I mean, you're talking about the picture, okay, that's what Bluetooth icon. So when you get to that root, you're like, oh my god, this is how it is. So our idea of gods is Bhagavan, not God. Our Devi Devatas are points of time. That's what we're going in. When I get to the root of it, this is what we'll continue. It is not Narendra Modi who's driving it, it's the Panchanga that's driving it. You're a Hindu because you follow Panchanga. You're a Muslim if you follow the Hijri. You're a Christian if you follow the Gregorian calendar. Now, the Congress in the US today is saying, look, we need a new calendar, we can't sustain this because the winter solstice is moved by 2 days. That's what is coming with Christ. It's like crucifixion of the cross, the zodiac. 2016, Hijri calendar was dropped by Saudi Arabia. Again, all this is documented in the book. It's not a part of common discourse. Panchanga is still continuing. There's a reason why Vikram Samvat was invented 2000 years ago. When you start to question it, I mean, I'm just to get up and start inventing a new calendar. The reason it was invented is because the gravitational pull is going down. That's exactly what has happened today as well. Coming back to our discussion, the reason why we are here, and I'll make the second point which you wanted in the next one, is because we are fundamentally tuned in with time. The only place where Sankalpa is done with space-time coordinates is India. That's it, nowhere else. And this is 20 years of research talking, not some Google search. Okay, so Book of Dead, Epic of Gilgamesh, Quran, Bible, Greco-Roman scriptures, Greek mythology. This is what I've been exploring for the past 20 years. It's not there anywhere.
I love the fact how Brijesh started the whole conversation saying कि हम scientific हैं, हम mathematically scientific भी थे, हमारे पास calculation tools भी थे, वहाँ पे सब कुछ था. वहाँ से I love how Rajesh brought it up to say कि हम अपनी stories को live करते थे. They are alive, and I know that he's going to talk about it in a larger context later. But the fact that we broke space and we were beyond time, and therefore we live our stories on everyday basis and we still keep them alive. That's why they're alive. They're not in the past. And then how, of course, Ajay came in and turned that table around to say that basically the difference between one human category and the other is that we are creatures of time. How we follow time. How we understand time and what our relationship with time is. Because that is as I always say, that in the Vedas start with the word Rita. the idea of Rita is the cosmic order. So following the cosmic order and the principles of cosmic order will ensure will ensure survival forever because the Rita will exist. The Vidhi ke Vidhan, the cosmic order will exist. Manushya ke Vidhan, the laws of human beings, whether they exist or they don't exist, is not the point. So, Brijesh, in the context of the cosmic order and in the context of Rita, and since we talk about other civilizational co-dependencies as well, जब हम Egyptian civilization पढ़ते हैं, which is of course one of the original ones, but it grew. जैसे हमारा Rita के principles होते हैं, वैसे ही Egyptian texts have this whole concept of Pygmalion principles, which are basically विधि के विधान, विधि के जो 7 विधान होते हैं, the laws of cosmic principle, which will apply no matter what. One of those vidhan, and that's what I want to talk to you about, which I suspect also explains the whole civilizational shift and consciousness. One of those vidhan is also cyclicity. जो जाएगा वो आएगा, and then therefore there will always be these reclamations in space and time. What I want to understand from you is that in this time and in this space and in this Bharat Bhukhand, where are we in our civilizational existence, in our journeys of, I would say, reclaiming, आपने भी कहा कि rediscovery है, where are we right now and how and what should we step in? Because clearly there's a sense of loss of identity, purpose, which we are figuring out. ये जो 15वीं शताब्दी से लेकर अभी तक का लॉस है, उसमें हम क्या कर सकते हैं और क्या कर रहे हैं?
Taking leaf from Ajay's concept of time. See, we do not fit into Western paradigms because they want to fit us into some paradigm.
Yes.
Our whole understanding of time is different. Time in India is cyclical. That wherever you look at any of our shastras, the nature of time is cyclical. That is why even if you look at life, it is always thought of as cyclical. And everything goes around that. Our whole understanding is that is the universal ebb and flow of life, of energy, of dynasties, of empires, of knowledge, of everything. And hence we do not look at world in terms of that there would be one day of judgment or something will happen at one final day. We believe that this has happened and this will occur again. Maybe in different orbits, this is going to continue. And if you look at this civilization, I think really the concept of civilization that Ajay gave is that how the cosmic order, the Rita, is in consonance with nature. Let me give you an example. Except for the barbaric, war which Ashok fought in 261 BC, every other Indian war, the local populace was never touched. Nobody in the war went and killed the citizen, normal people. Nobody went and beheaded people. Nobody went and raped women. It's amazing that the war also was fought with dharmic principles. So, and that is why, around 1000 AD, we were used to this kind of warfare, which was dharmic, which was fair play, right? If you have fallen down, I'm not kicking you. I'll ask you to get up. Or in the evening, you go back to your camps, I go back to my camp, and we both are gentlemen. But then when we were encountered with civilizations where we did not live by any law, right? And that was the problem because we were never ready for an adversity like this. And that also has been, our downfall is that somewhere we have been kind of introverted and involuted and we have not understood the outside world. But if you look at how civilizations will grow, then any civilization with a continuity of 5,000 years will ultimately become like us of what we are. And hence it is for us to deeply understand that where our values lie and what we want to give to the world. Now, taking this very practically, for example, today, let's say come to technology, where the West looks at technology as something which is to earn money. India, when it came up with technology, we made it into digital public goods, right? We gave Aadhaar, we gave all our UPI, everything free. Now the West is basically fighting that don't make it free. There is a huge pushback from the West. So in G20 deliberations, when we were on the sidelines there, I was hearing that they were lobbying hard for us not to push for free payment systems or free national identity. So this is consonance. This is consonance with your environment, with your people, with your forest, with your everything. You look at any Indian ritual. Uh, if you even if you do not understand Sanskrit, you find that what are they talking about? You look at any puja that is happening. What are they talking about? इसका भी भला, उसका भी भला, चींटी का भी भला, इसका भी भला, झाड़ का भला, पत्ती का भला. It's amazing that how this consonance, that how this goodness for everything is inbuilt into our DNA inherently. And that is why I think we are here to stay. And that this is how universal humanity, we are basically humanitarian. Nobody should come back and teach us human rights. Who is teaching us human rights? Once I was called for a lecture about inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion. Half of the lecture, then I said, what am I doing? And there were a lot of white people in there. I said, I'm sorry, I'm stopping my lecture right here. We never enslaved anybody. We never beheaded anybody. We never converted anybody. Right? Why are we teaching diversity and inclusion? We welcomed everybody. We assimilated everybody. We look at the number of languages we have. Look at the number of cultures we have. Look at the number of ethnicities we have. Why should that be taught back to us? By people who had slavery till 1960. The US had slavery till 1960. They had no voting rights for women till 1960. We began with universal adult suffrage, even when we were impoverished, right? And so also for the narratives of when people say, oh, but the British gave you railways. Oh, you made a straw on my own money to suck my own blood. And I should be thankful for that. Amazing, right? Why did they make the railways? They made railways to pull my raw material and take it to the factories of Manchester. Back to selling things. This is a time when we as a civilization should realize what has happened with us in the past. We should also learn, like, when Arjun doesn't want to fight, then Krishna tells him that there are times when you have to pick up Shastra. And Arjun jab Shastra uthao to bhagne ka apna chahiye. And that probably leads us to the discussion of the last panel about what India is doing now. People are not liking this aggressive India posture. And it's a time when a civilization in consonance with everything also has to defend itself. That was one mistake which we did in the past. We should never do that.
Actually, what Brajesh's context makes me think about, and I'm going by the fact that the starting point of this conversation was how is it that there were some great civilizations that collapsed. Like, I had always been bothered by the fall of the Egyptian civilization. I may have understood the fall of the Incan civilization, I don't necessarily agree with it. And of course the Middle East, which is basically the land of rises and burns and rises and deaths. What you lead me to believe is that at every point there were spaces and times where we could have collapsed. Say 1,000 years ago when you got invaded, etc. It's not that we weren't attacked or razed to the ground or threatened. However, we survived, we rose, we survived, we thrived. We may have been quiet for a while, and that's not the first time this is happening. The way cycles flow, many times it's happened. So we lie silent for a while, we bide time, we live in consonance with nature. We understand that it's okay, it's time for the hibernation, the rest, the recuperation, the recovery, the rebuild. And then we emerge again, then we are spring again. Right? So we understand that in the context of time. And then what keeps us alive is our stories that live and breathe through us, that continuously offer us hope. I want to understand from you, Rajesh, that ye understanding to बड़ी commonsensical सी लग रही है. मतलब if you were an ancient civilization, whether it's Chinese or Egyptian or wherever you were, or Indian, this seems to be like commonsensical understanding. Then how is it that only we have lived this understanding, which we have? And where I'm trying to arrive at after this round of conversation will be, therefore what? Therefore, what is it that we need to believe in within ourselves and what is it that we need to be careful of? But that's next. Right now, let me understand, how was it that this understanding was ours exclusively?
I don't think there's an answer, very definitive answer to that. But predominantly, if we look into it, one of the reasons why, since we touched upon Mahabharata, that's a very dangerous thing to touch on. I'm around. I love Mahabharata. Read 3 books on that, and it's a never-ending stream. I don't think there isn't a question that's not answered there if you properly read Mahabharata. Since long time, since philosophers of yore have discussed this, dharma of Bhishma versus dharma of Krishna. Always this thing, the first time I said, why on earth is this entire discussion coming around? I'll hold on that. Will also come another point is, while we talk about Krishna and Arjuna, while we are very close to Arjuna in our thoughts, in our pacifist behavior, in our saying, oh, why should I take my arms against my elders and all these things, yet we have never ever created a single temple. There must be temple there. Just saying, he just doesn't come up to the rank of Krishna. Why is that? What is that actually stopping us from understanding why we seem to be leaning towards Arjuna, yet we seem to be wanting to be Krishna, yet saying, could that be Krishna right in why doing that? Let's not even talk about Krishna being God or Avatar. Let's not do that. Let's just identify 2 persons at any space and time there espousing 2 philosophies. By him saying, he's not wrong when he's saying, अरे भीष्म को क्यों मारूं? वो उसकी गोद में खेला है मैंने. आज आपको बोले कि तलवार निकाल और मार अपने परदादा को या दादा को, तो आप ना करेंगे. क्या कारण है? What is that? It's the deeper essence that he again coming back to the time and space की जो बात आ रही है, where this line का unfortunately time and again line का geographical constraint आ ही जाता है. We seem to have gone somewhere deeper than this every time, not just in a time and space. It's into from our mental thing only. People, ancient rishis, sages, what that is, they seem to have understood that there is much beyond that what we see, what can be seen. If you see an ancient word for this seer जो word use होता है, हम भूल गए हैं. There is a word in Sanskrit called drishta. वो दृष्टा उसको इस्तेमाल नहीं करता, दृष्टा बोलते हैं. तो first time when I got into the spiritual meaning questions आता था, very young age, early teens. इसमें दिखता क्या है? दृष्टा मतलब जो जिसने देखा. Who is a witness? What is he witnessing? And you don't seem to realize that. Many are, he पागलपन है something. And I rejected it for nearly 20-25 years till the time it starts striking you. दिखने लगता है. Very hard to describe again, but दिखना शुरू होता है. Why we were saying, why again coming back to your question is, people have understood this thing in this land, which no one has understood. It's very hard to define. It's very difficult. I mean, like it's to define. कबीर से पूछा कि भाई क्या राम मिला तो क्या हुआ? It's like 1,000 sun. I mean, 1000 सूर्य is one reference to him. वो 1000 सूर्य कोई देखेगा तो बोलेगा वो कबीर के पास जाकर बोलेगा 1000 से भी ज़्यादा सूर्यवान था. मतलब तुम क्या बता रहे हो? Words have no power to explain. So it's very difficult to put it in words what this land has understood. It's gone much beyond mind. It's gone much deeper into it. That's the reason why we keep saying that. Again, how do we keep that civilization journey going? I spoke about Bhishma's dharma. We extrinsically seem to be following Bhishma's dharma. What is Bhishma's dharma? Bhishma goes by the book. He says कि ये लिखा हुआ है, ये मैं करूँगा. कृष्ण बोलता है जिंदगी बदल रही है. सुबह जो था अभी नहीं है. तू कैसे कर सकता भाई सुबह वाली बात? अब हम बोलते हैं यार ये तो छल करता है. हमने बड़े नाम भी दिए हैं कृष्ण को, बहुत सारे नाम दिए. निर्मोही, छल करने वाला, न जाने क्या क्या बोलते हैं. क्योंकि ग्रास्प नहीं है. It's very difficult to grasp a person who is saying in the morning कि बॉस ये तू ये कर. फिर शाम होते सांझ होते ही वो बोलता है कि ये कर. अरे बोले यार तूने तो सुबह बोला था ये कर. Again, he's going way beyond the mind. He's going way beyond the mind. Because ultimately this whole about what we call, we known as, I'll just end in that because it's very difficult to actually put that in word. In dharma, somebody will ask what exactly dharma का मतलब क्या है? It's universal equilibrium. That's it. कुछ और है ही नहीं. आप वो तारतम्य में बांध रहे हैं. वो there is an equilibrium that is there. आप कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं. You're just making sure that the equilibrium is maintained. Can you do that by standing apart? Can you do that by putting a hand to it? Can you do that by killing somebody? Can you do that? Whatever it is. But that harmony has to be maintained. That is the reason why this civilization journey is throbbing and will be throbbing there. Only thing we get jammed in between is we keep leaning towards Bhishma a little more than towards Krishna. That is what.
Okay. And I think
We already have questions coming.
yes. I want and to give me the answer in 3 sentences and not more.
What I can do is also please follow these gentlemen on the social media handles, the lady as well. They have some brilliant insights, but please do ask your question.
May I please first ask my question to Rama? In the context of the civilization that we are stepping back into and the things that we need to put out into the world and claim for ourselves, not reclaim. And in the context of the dharma, so that's the karma. That's the dharma. What would be those 3 things that we need to claim on priority?
Quick background because this is very, very interesting. First of all, anybody says I'm spiritual, they're fundamentally dharmic. There is nothing, and this is not some gooey gobbledygook out there, it's a very specific thing. So, because it's research variety, so I can confidently tell you, she said it, dharma is fundamentally Rita, it's Ritu. So, what is Rita? I mean, what is it observable that you can actually observe? You're able to time perfectly. By the Gregorian calendar, monsoon can hit Kerala coast anytime between May 25th to June 15th. Broad spectrum. But by the Panchanga, it is specifically in Rohini Nakshatra, Lakshmi Nakshatra, on Ekadashi, Dwadashi or Trayadashi. That's it. So the cyclicality is highlighted there. You're in tune with Rita. That's it. So when Shri Krishna says, Yada Yada Dharmasya Dharma Bhavati Bharata, Abhidharma Dharmasya Bhavati, you're like shooting a bullet here, you deviate by about 0.05 degrees, your bullet will go out off about 100 feet over there. Today, the fundamental problem in the world is sustainability. Trump is not fighting because he's like, oh no, I want to bring peace to the world. We've got 200 military bases everywhere. He's got a $40 trillion debt. It's not an informed decision. This is absolute cry for survival. Okay? That's the crux of it. When we go to war, the armies are made to do one specific thing. It's called march past. You know what it is in the West? It's left, right, left, right, left, right. They're very, very passionate about something. But you know what it is in India? It's daine baine, thumb. It's because it is you're consciously thinking. Is Arjun making that right, left, look, think. Now attack and don't think after that. We've fundamentally been superimposed by the exact opposite. So, we're calling the state that is on our east, West Bengal, the country that is to our west, we're calling it Middle East, and overall we're just completely lost. I think the fundamental thing is to educate kids on just start punching. The moment you do that, things start to align, you're like, okay, this works. Because unless you have the critical thinking, I don't think there's any way to go there.
So, educate ourselves on time. before I open it, and because we are running out of time, and this is a conversation on time, and we need to occupy an audience space. Before I open up the floor, the only thing I want to say is that I love how this panel of mine has come together. There is a Bhakti Yogi there, there is literally a Jnana Yogi here, and there is a Karma Yogi here. I couldn't have had a better union of all my Yogi panelists. I have a few questions. Yes, ma'am. I know you'll be making your chai also. I promise I'll take you chai outside. Yes.
We have time.
Yes.
How do you put this on?
Just listen.
Several answers. 1 minute. I've got a lot of answers to all your questions, all your thoughts. I'll just tell you why. Can you put this on?
I'll just introduce myself. I'm actually Strand Bookstore, Vidya Banerjee, Mr. Sharma's daughter. But that is not the avatar in which I've come. I'm actually a meditator with a path of the rishis, where the rishis have brought down a lot of knowledge which is for the current times. So one of the things I will tell you is what we are and what time has done to us. Time is 4 yugas, okay? We have just concluded Kali Yuga. Okay, 4 yugas. We're going into Satya Yuga where we are at the purest and the highest. That's 20,000 years, where we can speak to the gods. Next is Treta Yuga, which is 15 years, where there will be a degradation of values slightly. That's 15 years. Then another 10 years, there's a further degradation of values. That's Dwapar Yuga. And lastly, there is Kali Yuga, which is the worst, which is 5,000 years. So Kali Yuga has formally ended in 1974, when one of my Param Guru has declared Kali Yuga at an end. He's a very, very big soul who lives in Andromeda Galaxy now. So the thing is, it has been declared closed. So now we are going through a process of Pralia, which is change from the worst to the purest, to the best. That's the reason. That is the reason for the turbulence. And I propose that the reason that our civilization is suddenly coming to the forefront is because now is the time where all the ills that have been perpetrated will be washed away and truth starts coming to the surface. So our civilization is now coming back to the surface of discovery by the world. Okay? So this is where the purity of Indian civilization is going to be the beacon which will enlighten the world. India is going to be the beacon for the world, spiritually speaking. And that's the reason everyone is coming here. Right. The other thing that Guruji told us, Guruji Krishnananda, who's taken Mahasamadhi about 12, 13 years ago, he said that there were no religions before Kali Yuga. That's when all the religions came. Before that, it was always, the world was Sanatan Dharma. You can call it Dharma, okay? Which means commonsensical living righteously, living in consonance with nature, whichever many of you have described in very beautiful ways. So this is the recognition that we know is to do with Dharma. So Dharma has always been there. So Andrew said rightly once that it is public memory, it is civilizational memory that we have from those times. So the thing is, we have been suppressed. Why? Because we represented truth. So Kali Yuga is the time when all the dirt covers up all the goodness, all the truth. So we had the worst things happening, whether it is torture, rape, wars, Hitler, Stalin, everyone. So the worst of the worst happened now, and it's still continuing, supposedly, because we still have the dark that has to be pushed back. So the dark has to be pushed back. So the people who are good have to reinforce that goodness in order to push back the darkness, to go back to this. This is a 400-year journey, so we won't see it. Definitely most of us will be gone. But our future generations will slowly find more and more clarity, more and more goodness coming through. And if we manage this sooner, Satyayuga will come sooner. But if we go on with people who are horrible, then it will carry on for 400 years. But this is the destiny of time, destiny of the world. So the destiny is to be pure and to be perfect. And people will have that goodness and joy and peace that will come after 400 years. Okay. The other point I wanted to say is that why is Indian civilization so important? What Guruji said is that this is a land where the rishis are always born most of the time. So as a result, we've had the greatest rishis here. You know, all the greatest rishis, known and not known. They were not always talking about themselves or not always working in a way that they dealt with people. Like Ramana Maharshi, we know. We know so many of the other rishis, but we still don't know many smaller ones who lived in various places, small cities, small countries. Not countries, sorry, small towns. So what they do is they actually put down such good energies in this land. So they leave the energies in the place, in the land. So this energy is then given to the people who are born here. So as a result, I also propose that the souls that are born here have a certain advancement in their understanding, so that we are able to come very close to the truth. We are able to understand it. Sorry.
No, thank you. It was
I fulfilled it all. But
Thank you
those
so
are all
much.
the points I wanted to just
Thank
say. Because this is the time, these have come through the books that we have published, and these are the Vedas for the future,
Thank you, ma'am.
which
Thank
is for
you.
the world. And so I'll just mention these few
Well,
points.
that's fine. Thank you so much. We have one question that's been waiting. Also, quick 2 minutes.
Very small question.
Yeah.
First, I say that three of you have spoken so well, and you have given us a different perspective about the whole Indian civilization. Now, my question is to Mr. Brijesh Singh. You mentioned about Saraswati. Very interesting. So now that thought comes to my mind that the advanced technologies, we all of us know, where they originated near the banks of Saraswati and not in Silicon Valley. For example, I can tell you, we are now using or trying to develop further targeted robots. We know targeted AI-based robots who will do the perfect work and they will go. They will vanish. They will not come before that. They will not be seen after that. Now, I can give just one example which has come to my mind. Hiranyakashipu was to be killed, but Vishnu gave him the blessing that he will not be killed by animal or by man. He will not kill by any weapon. All this, and the person should not be biologically born who will kill me. All these things will kill. And with this, suddenly, Narsimha comes from a pig, half animal, half man, kills him with his nails, and then again vanishes. Nobody knows from where he came, and nobody knows where he went. So, can this be the form of very advanced robot?
Somebody found a way. Somebody found a way to, even within the nuclear umbrella, somebody found a way to give it the right answer that it is required to be given. And that's why what I feel is a kind of creative interpretation, and which is required at all times.
Thank you. Thank you so much to this most wonderful, wonderful panel.